Hi there, hi there, hi there. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for tuning in for Conversations with Carla. And we're going to have a wonderful conversation today with our guests. And so, thank you for joining us. My name is Carla. I'm your relationship doula, helping men and women bravely birth peace in the pieces of their lives. And we're going to be having a wonderful conversation with Donna today about domestic violence. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I wanted to just have that conversation. I know that it's uncomfortable for some to have a conversation about domestic violence, but we are going to be having that candid conversation today with Donna. And so, if you know anyone who is going through domestic violence or a young woman, a young girl, whoever that is, feel free to tag them and tell them, hey, jump on in for the next hour and join us. If you don't get to listen to it, you can always listen to the replay, and I'm going to upload it on my YouTube channel, Coach Carla Henry Lewis. So thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. Now, Donna, can you please just introduce yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Donna Kelly, and I am a mother of three fantastic, wonderful children. I work inside prevention inside Ponderay County. My views expressed here today do not reflect the views of my employer or any part of my employment with the county, but I am happy to be here to share um, just a lot of good tools and tips with women, and to have open conversation. I know I have lots of friends that are tuning in, so I'm looking forward to hearing their comments and to hear their stories as well.
That's good because I don't know how many of you saw our post that we did for domestic violence that Donna was inspired, but it's like why we choose to stay, why we choose to leave, why we choose to grieve, and why we choose to heal. And so I want everyone out there listening to know that this is a judgment free zone. Each one of us have our own story and why we may do certain things. And so what Donna's going to share is just her story. And so we are not male bashing anyone or female bashing because domestic violence can go either way, male, female, either way. But what we're doing is just wanting to share because I am so tired of certain things being in the closet. And so many things could have been avoided if someone else had been brave enough to say, hey, such and such, or be on the lookout for certain things so that we could avoid it. Now, I know some of you are going to jump in there and you're going to do it anyway because it was like, oh, and that's fine. But some of us, if we'd heard some advice, we may have done things differently. So, Donna, we're going to start off with your story on domestic violence and why you stayed. So I'll let you start.
Well, thanks, Carl. I definitely had, I want to back up a minute here. I don't give anyone permission to feel angry or have any type of feelings on my behalf. As I tell my story, we're not here to place any type of blame. We're not here to disparage anybody's reputation. This is my journey. And I want to make that crystal clear. I got married, it was 28 years inside that relationship. And clearly, I had lots of warning signs, lots of red flags. And I've had several conversations with lots of women who are in um, domestic violent relationships or that have left them. And we do see that there are red flags there. We choose to ignore them. And so that's part of why I wanted to have this conversation is that we can go back because we can't continue to be victims. We do have to somehow go back and say, hey, look, why did I ignore the red flags and proceed anyways? Um, and then when we do face those hardships, those hard times that so many women do in domestic violent relationships where there is infidelity, where there's substance abuse, where there is criminal activity, we still choose to stay or to ignore those warning signs
Mhm.
and to still choose to pursue those relationships. For some reason, we tell ourselves we can fix them. We
Yeah.
can fix them. We can make them better. They're so misunderstood. I'm the only one who understands them. We somehow look at ourselves as some type of savior, like we can step in and
Mhm.
fix everything. And there's a certain personality type that thinks that. We think we can save anybody, and it's just not true. We have to learn to look at those initial warning signs.
I like that because I was going to try to type in the box. We think that we can save because I think as females sometimes that nurturing part of us think that that's what we're here for. We're here to help. But I see that your friend Riley just was saying she popped in to make sure she sends her love, and Lonnie, and thank you those Rebecca, Adrian, Therese, Linda, all of you guys, and Rob Ruben for tuning in, for that. But that is a downfall for many of us. We think we can save someone. And I don't know if you are Christian or what other kind of belief system you have, but you are not here to save anyone. But sometimes we believe we can save someone. And so we do certain things. So continue, Donna.
Yes, and I think that's the thing that I wanted to touch on as well, Carly. You said that you had read one of my posts, and that was actually last year when I was at the We conference. I want to give a shout out to Mabel Dunbar, who runs the We Network here in Spokane, Washington, for women that have suffered from domestic violence. She gives them a safe haven. She gives them lots of tools and training to break the cycle. And when I was at that seminar, I heard a woman who got up there and gave a testimonial that so closely mirrored my story that I could hardly sit in the pews. She had gone through what is called, religious abuse inside her marriage, where men tried to control you through religion. And I went through a lot of that, not being able to think for myself or to read or study for myself. Um, I'm able to form my own opinions and told that this is wrong and that is wrong, or you're Jezebel for this, and all types of things. When I know that God is a loving God, and I
Mm.
know that we as women need our own relationships with God, and the church has a long ways to go in recognizing the damage that has been done, not just by husband, but the hierarchy in the church as well. I think that's one thing that really drew me to your counseling service or to your relationship coaching was that you put a post out there that said silence isn't holy. And I don't
Mhm.
know if you remember that very first post you put
That
out
was
there,
a
but
few
that's
years ago. Yes. Mhm.
yes, it was. It was a long time ago, but that really stuck with me that I don't really need to be quiet about what's going on here. What's going on is not right. I suffered a
Mhm.
more emotional abuse than physical abuse. And to be honest with you, Carl, I'm so glad you said that because in the beginning of our marriage, growing up as a child, we often would give each other little punches. And we would, when we were arguing, and my spouse at the time did not like that. He didn't think
Mhm.
that that was funny or it was okay. So I learned to stop that behavior. I learned to stop
Mhm.
that behavior because I listened to know that that is not something that he, even if I didn't mean anything good by it, I
Right.
knew that was something that he did not appreciate. So I stopped doing that. So we
Mhm.
have to learn to advocate for ourselves. So when we see things in the relationship that are not going the way, when we are not celebrated or appreciated or called out of our names or forced to do things that we don't want to do or teased and maligned and in the relationship that we learn to advocate for ourselves and to get the help that we need. It's
And
okay
I
to
want
ask for. Go ahead.
And I want to pause there because I want to address and reiterate to those of you who are out there. Donna and I are both women of faith, and so we are women of faith, but we understand and have seen and experienced ourselves. When she mentioned there about spiritual, how people use, or you're a man or a person, and not everyone can use spiritual things to abuse you, to shut you down, or to make you feel less than. And so I want women out there, especially, to understand that when someone is using the scripture to degrade you, to be mindful of it. That is a form of abuse. I always love the story in the Bible when the woman caught in adultery came out and everybody wants to stone her, but nobody went for the man who was messing with her. And no one does that. So there's a good old boy network. And I've experienced it a little bit with, I've had friends who've had domestic violence where the men in the church don't want to say anything or address it or check it. And I'm not saying it's everyone. Please hear me. It's not everyone. We're not saying that, but it's there, and it's hard for people to want to get involved. They don't think it's any of their business, or that's the man's thing. But if you're in a relationship and someone is using the word to beat you into submission or to undermine you and make you question who you are as a wonderful woman, we're just letting you know that is a form of abuse as well, and is unacceptable. All right. So now we're talking about the different stages. So so was that one of the reasons why you stayed as long as you stayed in your abusive situation, Donna?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There was adultery early on in our marriage. And one of the counselors that we went to was surprised that our marriage had even lasted after going through that. And I have to take some of the responsibility for that as well, because I wanted to look like the good spouse who stayed, regardless of this horrible thing that had been done to me. I wanted to look like that. I didn't want my marriage to end. I wanted to keep that facade going on. I wanted to, I talked with a couple of my friends before I came on in prepping for this. Why do we stay? We don't want to be alone. We don't want to be by ourselves. We want that happy ending. We want that fairy tale. So we do try to stay, and we do try to forgive, and we do try to move on. Um, so that is one of the reasons, Carla, that I did. I definitely stayed. I wanted to keep that. I wanted my family to be intact. I wanted to
Mhm.
look like this saint who stayed and forgave this poor sinner.
Because
And
we look
I
so
had my
good
own
for being
issues,
a martyr,
clearly.
is that it?
Clearly, I had my own issues that I needed to.
Mhm.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Mhm.
And this is what I'm encouraged. This is why I wanted to come on today, because we have to go back and get honest with ourselves. We have to go back and do the hard work to figure out why we bought into it in the first place, why we stayed. And then I'm going to get to the next part, why we finally leave, why we
Okay. All
grieve,
right.
and then why we heal.
Mhm.
That part. But yes, we're dealing with why do we get into it in the first place, and that is it, Carla. I stayed because I wanted that marriage, that fairy tale. I wanted that. I did not want to
Mhm.
be by myself. I had self-esteem issues. I thought nobody else is going to want me. Um,
Mhm.
and early on, my ex made it known that he settled for me. He told me that right to my face. I settled for you. And so in that moment, I probably should have said, goodbye. But I didn't have enough self-esteem.
Wow.
So I stayed thinking that really, because we're taught that, you're supposed to stay in your marriage no matter what. So I thought
Mhm.
that God, since we're married, you may have not cut the cloth, but surely you can make the garment. So that was my prayer, Lord. Please help this man to love me. Please help this man to
Mm.
love. Please help this marriage to grow. Lord, please. Without realizing that God had really clearly given me a way out of the relationship,
And I want to
because we
pause
don't
you
have
there.
to stay when there is clear adultery inside a relationship.
Yeah. And
Sure.
I said so many times, as you said, we think, those vows that we spoke that says till death do us part. And so even when there's infidelity, even when there's other forms of abuse, we don't understand that that is actually a death. And that is when you should leave. I don't know. Some people are going to be disagreeing with me. And again, that's for you. Each person can decide. But I want us to understand that when you've harmed yourself, because when you're with someone now and they harm you in this way, they have killed you, and so death has occurred. So I'm just putting that out there for others who may be in a relationship and feel as though I have to stay here because society expects this, my church expects this, or the church is going to think it's the woman's fault. So often they look at this and think we must not be doing enough. We must not be loving them enough. We must not be doing such and such. Did people kind of put that in your ear as well, too, Donna, that you weren't doing enough?
Absolutely. And, it's okay to get a divorce, but it's going to be because of the hardness of your heart. God wants you to stay because if not, for the hardness of your heart. And love covers a multitude of sins. And
Mm-hmm.
also, God hates divorce. Well, He does. He hates
Mm-hmm.
divorce, not because of what divorce is in and of itself, but because of what it does to us. That's why
Mm-hmm.
God hates divorce. The other thing is that, Carla, God will never force us. I don't care how hard we pray and what we do. You can never force a person who doesn't want to do what they don't want to do. And
Right.
God is not a God of force. And so
Mm-hmm.
therefore He does allow us a way out. You're not going to go to hell. You're
Mm-hmm.
there. God is a forgiving and loving God, and I am His beloved. And
Mm-hmm.
once I got that through my head, then things were just a lot easier for me.
So now take me through the time frame. So now you're saying why you choose to leave. So what were some of the things that helped you to make that decision? Was there something that finally was the thing that just tipped over and you say enough is enough? What did that look like for you? Oh,
Well, Carla, I had a wonderful network of friends. My family really never got involved. I never really involved my family, but I did tell friends. I did tell my healthcare providers. When I was pregnant with my daughter Bethany, I was, and I know this may sound crazy to people, but if you're not been in a situation where there's mind manipulation and you have this desire to try and please all the time, I was not allowed to cry. He didn't want me to cry during my pregnancy, and so I did not. And it caused me to develop a heart condition.
oh,
Because I had two funerals during the time that I was pregnant with
wow.
Bethany, and so I have records to back it up. Everything that I'm saying, I don't have to worry because I had this conversation with my cardiologist at the time, who put me on a Holter monitor and asked me, "What is wrong with you?" And I told him, and
Wow.
he did
Mm-hmm.
tell me at that time, that is a form of abuse. And
Mm-hmm.
so I still have that heart condition to this very day. I
Wow.
developed an extra benign heartbeat, which
Mm-hmm.
sometimes doesn't act so benign. It will race out of control sometimes. But God
Mm-hmm.
has been good to me, right? I've not had any real serious problems with that condition. So I'm thankful for that. Um, but yes, the reason why we leave is because, yes, we realize our own health is at risk. And more importantly, I hear a lot of women say that their children, they leave because of their children. I think that was the breaking point for me when I saw how it was impacting my children, and that my children were trying to stand up for me.
Wow.
And it was
Mm-hmm.
causing confrontation for them. That's when I decided I needed to leave. My son Daniel heard a conversation that we were having out of anger, where my ex said, I feel like breaking your jaw." And so my
Oh,
son spoke up. "I heard you, Dad." And so, now I don't want a confrontation between them. So I just started thinking, Donna, you got to get out of this
mm-hmm.
situation. So the reason why we leave is because we begin to see that staying puts a greater risk at everybody involved than it would be to leave. So
And I
that's the reason why we decide, hey, it's time for me to leave.
And this is a good point that I want us to think about, because many times as women, we may not do it for ourselves, but if you do have children in there, you make the decision to say, you know what? And I think I said, I thank God for that, because sometimes some of us, some of you, some women would or men will just stay because they think they should. But I know that some women stay because of the children. So it can go either way. And so I want you to understand, for anyone out there, and Donna's going to definitely share some resources later on, so that if you find yourself in this position, you know what tools to have when you're ready. So no one can tell you that you're ready now. You may not be ready until 5 months from now, a year from now. We don't know. This is your journey, and we respect that for you and your journey. But as Donna said, for hers is like impacting the children, because children see that. They see when their mom may or dad, whoever is being abused, is not doing well, and they're trying to cover it up, and they hear these kinds of things. And so that was one of the things for you when you decided, okay, it's time to leave. Did you have a plan when you made that decision to leave?
I did. I had a friend who introduced me to his cousin who had also left a domestic violent relationship, and she was working with me to help me get resources in place where I could leave
Mhm.
legally and take my children with me and put everything into place. But unbeknownst to me, my had access to my cell phone and was looking at everything that I put out there. And even though I disguised this woman's name inside my phone,
Wow.
access was still there. So I had several male friends that were also helping me and giving me advice on what to do. And of course, I was accused of having affairs with them. And that was not the case.
Mhm.
I did develop some very close relationships. And there were reasons for that. I had gone through so much neglect and inside my marriage that I needed people as a pillar to kind of boost me up and to tell me, you know, Donna, you deserve more.
Mhm.
And they're wonderful guy friends. They're still my friends to this very day. Nothing's ever come of it, you know.
Mhm.
And Carla, I'm proud of the fact, and I don't know if Beverly is out there or not, Beverly Bonner, but I told her I was going to mention her because she's really big on us single women. She also left a situation that was not healthy for her. She took a picture of what a single woman's bed should look like. And on one side, she had Bibles and journals and positive books that she read. I'm proud of my celibacy, Carla.
Mhm.
So many women leave the relationship and they're looking for looking for that connection. And I've had these very open conversations with her because she's a real pioneer of women staying celibate until God provides you with it. Don't take your abuse into another relationship. Stay and be
Mhm.
healed.
Yeah. And Beverly is tuned in. And so thank you,
And
Beverly,
then
um,
see what God.
for, yes. Oops, you're on mute, Donna. You accidentally muted yourself. So you're on mute. But yes, but Beverly is definitely on, and I thank you, Beverly, for being that source for the women where you are, because many times you just have to have a community to help you boost that self-esteem. Because I want everyone to know domestic violence is not for, people say, oh, it's for the weak, but it doesn't have any socioeconomic, it doesn't have any respect of race or gender. You could think that you have a high self-esteem. I've talked with women before. I used to be a case manager, and they wondered, how did it come to this? How did that happen? Because they were, or thought they were, a confident woman, and things happen. And so therefore, once you catch yourself and start putting yourself back in community, because one of the things with domestic violence is they try to isolate you. So when you find that you're isolated, you no longer have a community to come around you and to reinforce and remind you of the woman that you are, or are the journey that you're going on, that we're continually growing. And so therefore someone will tell you, oh, you're nothing, or you can't do this, or they belittle you. They put, they do those little jabs on you, and then all of a sudden you're just second guessing yourself all the time. As somebody says, they could be grooming you to just, start piddling away. And I'm just glad that
Carla,
you,
that is very true. Can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you now. Yes.
That is very true. You hear all those when you hear them over years, you begin to believe them. You're old, you're fat, you're ugly. I never wanted to have kids with you. You're stupid. All of those comments. You begin to believe that and to internalize it. And so it's a work to get rid of all of those that negative information that you've accepted. Well, let's face it, that's the person that you chose to love. And so you want to believe them. And so when they're
Mm-hmm.
saying those things about you, something in your mind is saying, well, they must be right. They know me better than anybody does. And if they're saying that, then it must be true. So
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to say quickly, and I have shame about knowing that we are in a professional relationship as well, because I need to share this. One of the tasks that you gave me was to 100 positive things out my mouth. And so I go, okay, this will be easy. And I just went through the list and I wrote down anything, kept with 100. And then when I was on the broadcast, you were giving me the information about the list. You said, no, you really need to go back and spend time writing those 100 things. Now, Carla, what month was that? About May of this year? Was it May?
Oh,
Maybe May?
I want to say it was around,
I'm
yeah.
still not done with that list.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And one of the activities what Donna's talking about, we
I
were
have been very, I went back and was very,
Oh, one of the things, because as Donna's referencing, is like finding 100 things about yourself. And I would challenge any woman out there to begin the journey of trying to find 100 things, positive things about themselves. And as Donna said, she's still working on getting her list because she couldn't come up with her 100, because so often we don't put value on certain things we do, or somebody has demeaned it. And so we don't understand. But going on the journey of exploring and getting to know yourself and knowing that you do have giftings, you do have value, you were created for a reason to add value and impact someone today, and knowing that to move in that. But okay, so we've talked about why people choose to stay, why people choose to leave. Let's talk about why choose to grieve. That's important, to grieve.
it is so important. And it took me a long time to get here because when you have lost your marriage, it's, and it's a lot of people say, well, it would be easier if your spouse had just, passed away. It would be easier. But here they are, there's a death of the marriage and your ex is still alive and still living. And you still have all these issues and you have divorce to go through. And you need to see them in court in spite of everything that's transpired and the way that they've treated you. You still have to see them in court. And some women still even have to parent children together. I don't have that luxury. It's a process to get past the anger. It's the stages of grief. I mean, it's anger, but you have to
Mm-hmm.
really get to the point where you grieve your marriage. You have to realize, okay, there were some good things about it. I got my children. I had 3 children out of this relationship. I lost it out of this relationship. Well, there's some good things that I learned along the way. We had good times, believe it or not. No, I don't care how overshadowed they may have been, with anxiety or fear. There were some really good moments inside the marriage. You have to realize, okay, this was good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going
Yeah.
to grieve the loss of that. You have to grieve the loss of your happily ever after. I had plans in my mind of what my marriage was going to look like, of how we were going to retire and what we were going to do. We talked about all of those things. And so you have to get to the point where you have to say, okay, that's not going to happen. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
grieve this. I'm going to literally cry if you need to. need to cry, to
Mhm.
journal, to talk to a counselor, to get through the point to realize that that's no longer my life. I'm letting that go. We cannot receive the blessings of God, what He has for us, if we're still holding on to the past and the things we really honestly, truly need to let go of.
And I like that, and I want you guys to hear um, that it is grief that is happening. It's 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 it is a loss, because if you married someone who you loved and wanted that death to us part, and as you said, you were going to share your life, you wanted to grow old together. So when you realize that that's not going to happen, you can't just pretend and and assume you're not going to feel sorry and that you're not going to feel a loss. And so, as Donna said, even if you have to go to counseling by yourself, if you have to get a coach or whatever, you have to process that. You can't pretend that that didn't happen. Some of you may be like, oh, you don't have to grieve. Fine, if that's not your situation. But for some, they may have to grieve, huh, Donna?
I didn't catch that last part, Carla. Can you say that again?
I said we have to grieve sometimes. So going through the process of grieving, and I'm sure the children have their own grieving or therapy. I don't know if any of them got that, or how did that look for you in the grieving process now that the father was outside the home? Oh, can we still hear me?
Yeah, you know what? It's a real delicate. I can hear you. Yes. You know, that's a real delicate situation. You have to be sure that your children are okay. I think that was probably my first. I have to really thank my community, because there were people in the community who clearly saw what was going on, and they did decide to circle around me and to continually check on me and to know that I was okay. So I'm thankful for those people. One woman in particular, when there was an incident, and my ex was asked to leave the home by the authorities, by law enforcement. I called a friend who was a counselor. I called her and make sure my kids were okay. That was the very first thing, because they are experiencing trauma inside the home. And then once you do leave, they're experiencing a whole new trauma and a whole new grief. You're absolutely right. We always have
Mhm.
those tools to give our kids the coping skills that they need. I want to emphasize again, it's okay. Even if your children just go for an initial visit with a mental health counselor, it's important that they do that. It's important that they take, I have to give a shout out. I've already given my disclaimer, but I work for Ponderay County Counseling Services. It is the only mental health provider, Medicaid mental health provider inside our county, and they do a fabulous job. I commend those counselors, because they deal with everything from youth, from small children, clear up to those that are in their elderly and dealing with the issues that it comes as becoming empty nest, losing a spouse. They are a wonderful plethora of backgrounds that are inside our agency, and I'm amazed at how committed they've been through COVID to get people through, because there are so many an increase in domestic violence, an increase in the parent-child relationships, as far as knowing how to discipline and how, those abuse cases are going up. So I want to give kudos to them. But listen, in our county, I know where to go. And if you don't know where to go, messenger me so I can get you those resources. There's a wonderful resource, a
Yes.
new resource out there called My Strength. I think anybody can Google that, but there's wonderful resources they have that are able to help you um, to find the help that you need inside the community. We have peer counselors there. We don't have a whole
Mhm.
lot of independent counselors inside of our community. So if you need help, reach out to me. I have about 4 or 5 women that have contacted me. That's why I do what I do. That I can give
Oh,
them those resources, where to go. And if you don't know in your own community, find those resources, band together, and talk to your physician. They have to keep things confidential unless a child is in danger. Talk to your physician about where those resources are. Talk
And
to
so,
trusted friends.
and I just want
Yes.
to piggyback on what Donna is saying for you guys, because it's so important. Your healthcare provider is your first one of the people who may have resources for you. They may be able to refer you and give you a list of mental health providers for your children. Because imagine if you're going through domestic violence, your child may not want to share certain things with you because they may be angry with you. They may think it's your fault why the father may not be in the home anymore. And so they may have emotions that they need to express. And so having a third neutral party is someone who they can share their feelings with without hurting mommy or hurting daddy's feelings, because they need someone to guide them through this situation and the new normal that may have happened. Sometimes children, because they're too young, they may not understand that it's important for mommy and daddy to live apart because they're hurting each other. So you can still love someone. And I did a post the other day. You can love someone, but if their actions aren't doing that, it's time to walk away. If those actions can't do the same thing as that love, then it's damaging. You may not want to walk away, but it takes strength and courage to do that. So when you're ready, if you choose to stay in a situation, again, judgment free zone right here. We're just here that if and when, as I tell people, back in the day with the Underground Railroad with Harriet Tubman, not everybody wanted to be free. Some people are comfortable where they are. So not everybody took her up and moved to go to be a free to do that. So they rather something that they do know. So we know that sometimes for a woman when she leaves, there's economic hardship. I know Donna and I have talked about that. There's economic hardship because the partner, the other person was the brought in more income. So there, we know it's not a cookie cutter that, oh, do this. But what we would like you to do is to reach out, and Don and I will try to find resources in your area, what county you live in. So you can message us privately. And we will look that up to do it. We can try to find the resources in your area, or what 800 number or something that you can call to do. I tell my girls even now, they're adults, but when they're dating, let's have a safe word, a word that you say to me to let me know that something's not all right, and you need me to intervene. Because other than that, you're an adult. I'm going to allow you to live your life. But if something happens and you need mama to come to the rescue, just say the word. So, okay, I went off on a tangent. Okay. All right, so we're talking about the grieving, having to grieve.
That is very.
And so I was just going to
I
say, if
want
you
to say
need,
something just real quickly, Carla.
yes. Mm-hmm.
I always, whenever I take my children to the pediatrician, to the doctor, to the physician, I do go in with them. Even with my daughter, who is 19, I may go in with her initially if she will allow me to. I then
Mm-hmm.
give my concerns to the physician. I ask Hannah's permission for me to stay. And if she wants me to leave, I leave. But with my younger daughter, I always leave at the end of her examination to allow her that time to talk to her
Yeah.
physician alone. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing to hide. Allow
Mm-hmm.
your children that time to do that. On
Mm-hmm.
to why we, and this to me is really important because I am in this process of fully healing, and um, it's a beautiful thing. It's hard work. I'm not going to kid. It is
Yeah.
not for the faint of heart. It comes in stages. It comes in waves sometimes, but it is definitely necessary to heal before you
Mm-hmm.
move on to any other relationship. And that was kind of a hard lesson for
Mm-hmm.
me to learn because I only knew how to be a wife and a mother. So I was very anxious to jump in and to be a wife and a mother again. I was already a mother, but I wanted that role back. I wanted my home back. I wanted a husband. I wanted that, comfort of someone in the bed at night. I wanted all of that back again. And so we oftentimes will make the mistake of rushing in, and it is a huge mistake that we are making. We have to really go through the process of figuring why we were in that relationship in the first place, and then
Mhm.
healing from that. One thing that
Mhm.
helped me to do this, and this is strictly for prevention, and I hope you don't, you said it was okay for me to share these
Yes.
resources, but this is dealing with how positive messaging for people that are dealing in substance abuse prevention. But when I watched this, when I saw this, I applied it to women that are leaving domestic violent relationships. And it is the science of the positive. And it is by Jeff M. It's out of the Montana Institute. And it talks about a cycle. And the first is spirit. That's our relation, people that are not are of religious. I'm just saying that spirit. That's energy giving. It's positive. It's hopeful. Then we have science, which is learning and planning and being effective at what we're doing. Then we have action, which is integrating change and transformation. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. And then we have rest, reflection, and
Mhm.
evaluation, where you sit back and you need to think through what changes I've just done. And then it's a continual cycle. And I was in class learning this for substance abuse prevention, but I'm saying, wait a minute. This is for women that are in that cycle of domestic violence. If we don't stop and have that change and transformation, we're going to go right into that cycle of abuse again. You've got to sit with it and have the change and transformation, and then rest, reflect, and evaluate that change, and then back in through that cycle all over again.
I like
You
that.
had a question, Carla?
No, I said I like that. Rest, reflect. I'm trying to type that in. Reflect and evaluate, you said? Oh, I
Yes, and I don't want to take credit for that, but for if people want to know, just look up online. It's the science of the positive. It's the cycle of transformation, and it lines directly up for those of you that are spiritual. It lines directly up with be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Our minds have to first be renewed and transformed.
mhm. Okay.
Okay,
I know some of them were
so
saying
why we here? Go ahead.
no, I was saying some of them are saying you're going in and out, but Donna is up in the mountains and their reception is a little tricky sometimes. So that's why you may hear her going in and out. So that's what we're working amidst the technology that we do have there. So thank you guys though for tuning in and listening. So I like that reference you talked about the science of oh, it just slipped my mind what it was. The science of what was the book resource, Donna?
Of the positive.
The science of the positive. And
It
I
is
just wanted
not.
to
It's strictly online.
go ahead. Okay. One of the things I wanted to
It
touch
is
on when we
strictly
talk.
an online. You have to just research that reference or that piece online. And I apologize to everybody. I probably should have accessed the laptop instead. I did it on my telephone. So I hope that you guys are able to piece together information. And I'm sorry, I can't see everybody who is out there, but thank you to those of you who did tune in. I think Deetra might be out there, and Beverly, and Shirley, and a couple of other people. I'm very grateful for your guys' support.
Yes, I think your community has definitely tuned in. And so I love that. And one of the things that I wanted to share, I remember when you talk about healing and having your daughter be able to have a conversation with her, the physician there. I know a friend of mine who had some abuse in their family, and her daughter made a brave move in that she wanted her father to have counseling with her and asked that the judge make that a part of, as she got older, for her to, because she didn't no longer wanted to go visit with him because of the different situations. And the father chose not to do the counseling with them. And so she was like, okay, fine then. And she blocked him on her phone. And I said many times he would blame the daughter, the mom, thinking the mom is the one who kept the child from talking with her. But the child was now older and going to her own counseling sessions, and said, because she was choosing to be healthy. And I applauded that young woman, because I know from my generation growing up, we were just taught to just take it. You just took it, and you just took it. And I applaud this new generation for standing up. And people may say, oh, you're being rude or whatever, but you are using your voice. So I want you to continue out there. And if there's some woman or man out there who needs help in finding their voice, please reach out. I'd love to help people find their voice so that you can start advocating for yourself, because after a while, others can do it for you, but you eventually will have to use your own voice, because we will not always be with you. And so we can do that. Okay, Valerie is asking the name of that. You said it's an online resource. So Donna, tell it to me and I'll type it in there. What's that online resource? What is it? www what? And so we're going to get
It is
that.
the
Okay.
science of the positive, and it's
Yes.
www.com/
Wait, you broke up. www dot what? What is it? www. I'm sorry.
Montana Institute.
What was before Montana Institute,
I wonder if
Donna?
I put it in the chat. No,
You put it in the chat? Okay.
www.
Can you type it in the chat? Or do you have? Yes.
Let's see. I think I might be. No, it will not allow me to put it in the chat.
It
So
won't allow you.
maybe you want to
Okay.
make it available afterwards, and then I can give it to you
Okay.
afterwards.
We'll put it in the
I
chat
have a couple
afterwards.
of other resources.
Okay, go ahead and share them with
I have a
us.
couple of other resources, because it's important as to how we heal. We have to first understand the effects of abuse. I think I've recommended this book a number of times. The body keeps score. When we understand the effect of abuse and trauma on the body, then we know how to move about healing it. So that's really important. I want to thank I had two friends that actually sent me a copy of this book. So it's really important that we have that as a resource. I also want to, for women who are part of their moving the wrong direction of their journey. I don't know if this applies to all women, but if pornography has been a part of your abuse or your situation, I want to recommend this book, For Your Eyes Only, by Kurt M. Samuels. I had no idea of the impact that had on women until I actually read his book. For those of you who want to contact him, and I would recommend you, Carla, that you have him. Maybe awesome information for both men and women. And then last but not least, When the Vow Breaks.
Okay.
This is a new book that I've started reading, When the Vow Breaks, and I'll tell you who this, I think you can see Richard D. Arvanzo. This is an excellent one as well, When the Vows. And then I don't want to give out the resources that you've given me during our sessions, because if people want those resources, they're going to need to sign up and have as their stress management and relationship coach, because the resources that you've given me were just invaluable. They really helped me to understand my codependency, to really understand my next steps that I needed to make. So it was a huge step for me, Carla. I want to just say this real quickly. We never want to rule out this. Part of healing is forgiving the other person, asking for forgiveness where we were wrong, and then realizing that they may not be the person that they were when they were married to us. We want to always have grace and say this person may have gotten the help that they need. They may have changed. They may themselves be transformed. I always want to leave room for grace. I never want to put someone in a spot and leave them there. And then I ask that we move forward in grace. Once again, I don't give anyone permission to take up any type of vigilance on my behalf because it is well with my soul. And so I share this story because every time that I share it, I get so many women that reach out to me. And I need to say this quickly too, I'll let you say whatever else that you need to say to begin to wrap up. But the court systems are not always for women. They're not always for women of color. And so you have to, when you're leaving a situation, ensure that you are financially going into any relationship. Lots of my friends tried to tell me, be financially secure. Make sure that you're paying yourself. Because I was a stay-at-home mom. I left the relationship pretty much with nothing. So it was really difficult for me to realize that after all of these years, I had nothing to show for it. But part of that was me. I had to look at myself. I needed to make sure that I was taking care of myself financially, that I had a separate account, that I was putting money in that so that in the event that something would happen, that's not a lack of faith. That's reality. If something should happen,
Mhm.
I had a way to take care of not only myself, but my children. So that can also be an
Mhm.
added stress as to why women don't want to leave. I actually
Mhm.
had a counselor tell me, that I've known women that have left with nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing, and they've made it. And I'm here to say, I'm very proud of the fact that by the grace of God, I have made it. I've been able to pull through and been able to find employment after being home for 16 years, homeschooling my children, and being isolated out here. Living in the country, I've been able to make it. I've been able to build a strong network of friends and colleagues, and I've been able to make it. I've been able to pull through by the grace of God. And that's the message I want to give to women. I don't care how much the odds are stacked up against you and whatever you're going through. The message I want to give you is that you can make it. You just can never give up. You cannot quit. And I can't begin to tell you how many times I wanted to quit. I had to go
Mhm.
through surgery because of I went through in my relationship. And I had very dark moments in my life thinking, why is this happening to me? And why are they allowed to just go on and live their life freely? But that's not for me to concern myself with. It is for me to worry about the future that God has in store for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
What that
Yeah.
song says is so clear. What God has for me, it is for me. And so
Yeah.
beginning to realize, and I have to give credit to my friend Ruth, who from the very beginning called me beloved. You are God's beloved. That so many friends that have just really poured into me. One of my friends told me, it's going to be hard, but you can make it. It's going to be hard,
Yeah. Mhm.
but you can make it.
And I
And women have surrounded over again that it's now my responsibility to say, yes, I
Mhm.
went through this. I went through this very hard, dark time, but you can make it. You can make it.
yeah. And I like that because I'm going to piggyback on that. And again, thank you guys so much for the different comments and different things that you've been sharing and in support of this journey. Because I want to encourage you, as Donna has said, life may seem like it's different, but it's just learning the ABCs all over again or in a different way so you can do it. It's making those little bitty big steps. And so it may seem as though life has, you have to start over and it can seem frustrating because it's just like, what happened? I know there's this one Bob Marley song. What I don't know if it's Bob Marley, but it's like one step forward, two step backwards. Sometimes it seems as though you were like, it's like you're going reverse, reverse. You don't think you're making any movement forward. But I said, as long as you have breath, you can move forward. And yes, it may seem challenging because it's like, hey, I may have to start from scratch because you may have been a stay-at-home mom, you may not have been the breadwinner, and so you don't do that. But I want you to know there are communities and support systems out there to encourage you on. We can't live it for you, but we can give you the tools and resources. And by the time you look back a month from now, a year from now, it's just like, oh my, I've come a long way from where that was, where I was broken. I went through the phases of staying, leaving, grieving, healing. And now you're at a place where you look yourself in the mirror and you know that you're an awesome woman, that you have influence, and that you're doing fine. And there's much more to go because we are always moving forward, ladies. There's never a place where we've arrived. We are always growing and moving, and it's okay. We may have made a mistake. It's not the end of the world. As I tell myself and my girls, if I'm going down the highway and realize that I should have been going 65 north and I'm going 65 south, am I going to stay on 65 south? No. I'm going to get off on the nearest exit and turn around and go in the direction I was supposed to go. So if you're on a road and you realize it's not going in the direction that you want to go, it's okay. People may talk, you may have to cross 4-lane highways to get off on that exit. You may have to drop certain things off or whatever it is. It's okay to make that U-turn and say, wait up, this is not the direction I want to go. And I need to be heading north, and this train is going south, and I'm not going down with it. You don't have to go down with the train. I tell my girls all the time coming up, I'm not the kind that's going down with the ship. They knew I was the type of mom is just like, if you want to go down, fine. But I'm not going down with the ship. If I got a life vest and some of the stuff, I'm headed to shore. I'm going to come out of this. So, guys, we don't want you to think that you're alone. The book that Donna mentioned earlier, I read that book. She told me about it, the one that says the body keeps score. Oh my goodness, guys. If you understand how trauma and domestic violence is a trauma, how that affects you. And that's the other thing why I want us to learn to be more compassionate to others. We don't know who has gone through trauma. It's none of our business. They may never share with us the trauma they're going to, but we can always extend grace. We can err on the side of compassion and just say maybe they have gone through something and this is why they may be behaving this way. And Donna mentioned about forgiveness as well too. That is a gift that you give yourself. Forgiveness. Forgiveness. The other gift you give yourself is being so happy and in love with yourself that when they see you later or hear about you or see you on Facebook, they just mad because you having a good life and they thought you're going to be curled up under a rock, all grieving over them and just, stuck in a place of paralysis. But finding that joy, and I love to help women find that again because it's nothing more beautiful than to have that inner love for yourself, and then it just comes out to everyone else. So anything else you want to share with us as we wrap up today, Donna?
Yes, just real quickly. Never give up on your health either. I think weight has been a struggle. One doctor told me while I was going through this, it was going to be very difficult to lose weight because my cortisol levels were just off the chart because I had so much stress in my life. What he did encourage me to do is to eat healthy and to, get moderate exercise in so that I keep everything under control. I encourage women to do that. You may not be able to lose weight during this time when you're in survival mode, but be sure that you are taking care of yourself. I do tell women to please tune into these conversations with Carla because it's about networking. You may not need information on, like, I'm going to give you some examples of the things that we've been talking about here at these conversations with Carla. And she's normally on at 1 o'clock our time. But at any rate, lactation. If you're a mother who's dealing with lactation, wanting to nurse your baby, if you are dealing with the loss of a child, if you are wanting to improve your health, if you've been disenfranchised by the church, all of these are topics that are talked about here on Conversations with Carla. So I'm going to just put that plug in that I make room for this every Sunday to plug in. I may not be going through it, but it's a resource for me to other people. And then I need to say this because God has been more than good to me. And for people out there that have helped me, they know this. No matter what the rulings are and the direction it goes, God is the righteous judge. And no matter
Mhm.
how those rulings seem like there's no way I could make it. God always made a way for me to make it. He always sent someone with something. Sometime a check would come in the mail, sometime a box of clothing, whatever it was. Even someone dropped a box of food off one time. Whatever it is, God is there to
Mhm.
meet your needs. Our people
Mhm.
are there in the community. They know your plight. They're there to help you. Never be ashamed. Shame is a
Mhm.
terrible thing. It makes us, when we go through this time, we do feel as though we have something to be ashamed about, and we do not. And the last thing I
Mhm.
want to say real quickly is get people out of your head. Everyone is going to have their opinion. There's going to be gossip. Divorces are sometimes messy and very public, but it doesn't matter what anybody thinks. I had to even apologize to one of my relatives because I lied to her because I cared so much about what people were thinking. Forget all that. I called her, forgive me. I had to ask her to forgive me, but you know what? I don't care what people think. You can think whatever it is you want to think. Get people out of your head
Mhm.
and focus on yourself and taking care of your children. So that is probably the most important thing I want to live with people, leave with people, and you can make it. And thank everyone who helped make me through, especially you, Carla. You've been a huge resource for me. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Donna, for sharing that and doing that. Because again, my goal is to, again, if there's just one young woman or one young man who can hear something, and when the time comes, they remember it, to help them through this journey, then it was worth it. So just exposing things to the light. Roaches run when the lights are on. So I'm like, I'm going to turn on the lights so that they scurry. I'm tired of us scurrying when the enemy and the roaches need to scurry. So thank you again for being brave enough to share your story and being vulnerable with this, because I'm excited for our guest next week. We're going to have a young woman, because October is also domestic violence awareness, but it's also infant and pregnancy loss. And so a young woman is going to be sharing her story next Sunday on infancy loss and how she turned that into a little ministry. But because she shared, because oftentimes we don't want to talk about different things, that we're told, don't air your dirty laundry. And I'm like, well, if you don't air it, how's it going to dry? How's it going to get clean? But anyway, that's a whole different subject there. But I want to thank each one of you for following us. And we're going to put the more resources there so that you can have it. And Lottie says, self love and inner peace. Thank you for sharing, beautiful cousin. So I want to thank all of you guys for tuning in. But my name is Carla. I'm your relationship doula, helping men and women bravely birth peace in the pieces of their lives. You guys have a good week. Bye bye.